So I was getting a little discouraged about all the negative reports online about ways that people have done harm to animals, unfortunately. So I started to look into ways to prevent the mistreatment of animals, and that led me to our special guest tonight.
Come on, all you doggies, won't you walk with me? I'm the puppet dog.
So welcome to everyone, and if you're new here tonight on the Animal Intuitive channel, we have weekly Furry Thursdays. We have episodes about animal communication. I'm a professional animal communicator, animal massage and acupressure, which I practice, and other holistic methods to support our pets, as well as interviews with experts in the fields of animal care and advocacy. And tonight's guest is Kim Corona, the Senior Program Director from H.E.A.R.T, which is Humane Education Advocates Reaching Teachers. So welcome, Kim.
Thank you so much for having me, Anne. I really appreciate it. And on behalf of all of H.E.A.R.T, we really appreciate this opportunity to share our work with you and your audience.
I'm just so happy to have you here. Really excited to talk about this. And good evening, everyone in the chat. Good night, Owl. Thank you for being here. Good to see you. So we will have time if anybody has questions tonight, or if you're watching the replay, you can put those questions in the comments, and I can always, ask him to help, answer those later on. But, feel free to put your questions and comments in the chat. This is an interactive show. So Kim, please tell us, what is H.E.A.R.T?
Yeah, thanks for asking. So we are a 501c3 public charity humane education organization. So our mission is to develop a generation of compassionate youth who create positive change for animals, people, and the natural world. And the way that we achieve that mission is, oh, and I just want to make sure you can still hear me because it looks frozen on my end.
I can hear you. If anyone in the chat is having trouble hearing Kim, please let me know. But I can hear you okay. And I'm not seeing anybody saying anything. So
Okay.
I think you're good.
Okay, great. Thank you. So the way that we achieve our mission is one through direct teaching. So we do direct services, and we teach students from K to 12, and even once in a while we teach college. We'll be guest presenters for a college class that relates to what we do. And that in those direct teaching programs, we basically teach about the interconnections between issues facing people, other species, and our natural world. We also do develop educational resources, and the majority of those resources are free and available to anyone, whether you're a parent or caregiver, formal classroom teacher, or an informal youth educator, like anyone who's looking to do humane education. We also do professional development training. So we actually offer trainings that people can attend. Sometimes a nonprofit will invite us to train their volunteers because they want to start doing humane education. We also offer a professional development course to New York City teachers through the Department of Ed's after-school professional development program. So we're actually teaching New York City teachers how to use humane education to meet the standards and the different expectations that they have to do in the classroom. And then lastly, we do consultations. So we support people who are looking to be humane educators and just giving them advice on like how you can get started on this path. And we also provide consultation for maybe someone like an organization who's saying they want to start or expand their humane education program. And then one last thing is that we do advocacy in the governmental and educational sector to try to promote humane education.
Wow, that's a lot. So you mentioned that you help New York City teachers. Do you work in other parts of the country, or mainly just New York City?
Yeah, that's a great question. So our organization started in New York City, but we also have offices in Chicago and Indianapolis. And then I had actually moved to New York City when I first got hired, and I lived there for 6 years. And then I moved back to Detroit, Michigan, where I'm from. So I work for H.E.A.R.T remotely from Michigan. Once in a while, I do educational programs here. My job now is mostly doing helping to develop educational resources and the professional development. But once in a while, like recently, there was like an animal ethics class at a college nearby. Madonna University, they invited me to talk about animals seen as food for the college course. So I did a class there. There's a animal shelter in the area, the Humane Society of Huron Valley, and I've done some programs at their summer camp. And when I first moved here, there was a school in Highland Park, which is a city near Detroit, and they asked me to specifically do a program about animal companions. So I taught that program and then organized a field trip to a local animal adoption center.
Wow. So it actually sounds like a very creative position. It kind of sounds like there's a lot of different like tentacles going out, like different things that you're doing. You don't seem to limit it to one particular age group or anything.
Yeah, we're a small organization, and everybody takes on a lot of roles, and we do a lot of different things because we want humane education to be as accessible as possible to as many people as possible. And even though I said we've generally taught K to 12 in college, we even developed an educational resource for pre-K students called Kindness for All. And in that guide, we have 7 lessons, and some of the lessons are helping very young children be able to identify their own feelings and some just simple things even at an early age, how to deal with big feelings, like how do I cope when I have really big feelings and express them in healthy ways. And then we have another lesson about respecting other people and embracing diversity. So we have stories of individuals who are sometimes based on their identity, sometimes underrepresented or misrepresented. And the students hear those stories because we know at an early age, if students hear a lot of diverse stories of people from all different backgrounds and different types of families, that they're a lot less likely to fall into him making stereotypes or assumptions about people, and a lot more likely to be open-minded to someone who's maybe different from themselves and being respectful. And then we use that to launch into respect to other species as well, right? So then we have some lessons about animal feelings. So they've thought about their feelings, the feelings of other people. Now we're going to look at feelings of our animal companions. And they learn about reading animal body language, and not just reading animal body language for their own safety, which is very, very important, of course. We know a lot of dog bites tend to happen with kids who are very young, but it's also so that they're reading their language, so they're respectful of that animal's feelings and their needs. And then we have a whole lesson on animal needs, and then we go into respecting wildlife as well. And then the last couple lessons are kind of putting it all together, where they practice how can I be kind to people and animals on the planet. And they do different activities and many role plays to like actually practice just very simple things that are age appropriate, where they kind of practice like, how am I going to be respectful to an animal that I interact with? Or if I'm walking in a park, that I'm going to look at the animals, and we make pretend binoculars, and they can look at them instead of, chasing them or scaring them. And so it's just a very gentle approach to fostering pro-social behavior. So yes, we do all different ages from young to old, because these are things that all of us can learn. And empathy is within all of us, but we can all have lessons to help increase our capacity for empathy, and also critical thinking, and then empowering ourselves that when we do see harms or problems, what can I do to make a difference in my personal life and on a systemic level?
So this is so interesting. So let me back up because I have so many questions. So how did this all get started?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. I mean, humane education, the history of it actually goes back to animal protection organizations as well as human rights advocates. So there were people who really were working on protection of children and trying to advocate for children's rights and children not being abused. And then there were also similar, like a lot of the same people were also doing some advocacy for animal protection. And so in the animal protection world, humane education sort of started in the US when people were seeing like animals that had been used to work, like horses being abused or hit. And they wanted to like change that idea about like how we're treating horses or animals that were seen as, just for service. And so it started that way. And then when Humane Society started to focus more on animal companions, they started humane education. So there was actually many years ago when Humane Society had started, they had started something called Bands of Mercy, where they actually had kids join this group and they made pledges to be kind to animals and to promote kindness to animals, similar to like a Girl Scout troop or a Boy Scout troop, but it was focused on kindness to people and to animals. So that's just briefly a little bit of a history of humane education. But then this really comprehensive approach kind of came about a little bit later, because people started saying, we really do have to think about like social justice, like in a deeper way, and animal protection and environmental ethics, because all these issues are connected. And we can't just help one without the other if we really want to create a world that works for all. I mean, look at some of the most serious problems that are facing our world right now, like climate change. Climate change is being caused by human activity, which then leads to some of these really severe disasters that we're seeing, like floods and drought and forest fires. And when those things happen, people have to flee. And if we don't have services set up where people can bring their animal companions, then sometimes they don't know what to do. They have their animals with them and they have nowhere to go. Sometimes they wonder if I have to leave my animal behind. And then, we've seen like in some of these forest fires where the wildlife and the environment are being destroyed. So we're in drought. So all these things are really connected. So sometimes we do need to focus on a specific issue, but we want to teach people to have a holistic perspective when they're trying to solve problems, and not to leave anybody out, so that we can think about how can we create solutions that take everybody into consideration.
Wow, this is so amazing.
So kind of going back to
People
really
are
going to
very
your question. So for
interested,
me,
yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So for me, how I learned about comprehensive humane education was from the Institute for Humane Education, and that was co-founded by Zoe Weil and Ray Sikora. And they designed this school where you could get a master's degree in this comprehensive humane education, and really looking at systemic problems and how those issues face all living beings in our natural world, and how we can think about solutions for everyone. And so I had been interning at Farm Animal Sanctuary in California, and one of the other interns had recently attended one of their workshops. And we had been talking, and I told her, what I wanted to do with my life. And so she said, you should hear the school. So as soon as I read it, I was like, this is what I want to do with my life. This is my purpose, because I cared about all these issues. And I thought most people really have, they want to do what's the best for others. I think most of us are good, and we have good intentions, but we're really unaware of harms in the world. And when we're harmful in our interpersonal relationships, there's usually something that's been missing, some social emotional skill that hasn't been developed. And so if people are given the tools and the awareness, then we're a lot more likely to be able to have healthy relationships with people, animals on the planet, and to make choices that are healthful and for the well-being of everyone. So I went to that graduate school, and so I learned a lot about the issues as well as teaching strategies, because I never wanted to come at talking about these issues from a place of judgment or shaming, but really just to spread awareness so that people could make more conscientious choices and be aware of what was going on in the world. Yeah. So after I went to school there, I was really lucky to get a job at the Michigan Humane Society. And then I worked there for 4 years, 3 years in their education department. And then I found the job at H.E.A.R.T. So H.E.A.R.T started actually by school teachers who were really interested in humane education. And they were full-time teachers who then, as volunteers, like on the weekends, would train other school teachers to say, we need to incorporate this into the classroom because we have to foster pro-social skills, not just our academic skills. So they were doing these trainings. But obviously that was pretty hard for them to be full-time teachers and do this volunteer work. There was yeah, exactly. So the organization went a little bit inactive for a while. And then our executive director, Mina Alagapan, was involved with an organization called Animal Welfare Trust. And there was a man named Brad Goldberg who was the head of that organization. And he was saying, they were funding people who were doing work to help animals. They were like funding unique projects. And he said, this is really great, but I think we need to reach young people. Like we really need to teach young people as a preventative, and to start with young people and fostering pro-social behaviors towards people and animals and care for the planet. So Mina said, well, there is this organization, H.E.A.R.T, and it already existed, and they already have a 501c3. Maybe we could kind of reincorporate it and get it started again. And that was in 2006. So we've been around since then as a new organization, but it was originally started in 2001. So technically, we did have our 20-year anniversary because we want to pay homage to those original volunteer teachers who started
Right.
it. And I've been with the organization 2008. But so that's kind of how this started. Was it was people really seeing that the importance of teaching about these issues to young people, and then bringing the way to teach that was through this nonprofit where we could be guest teachers. And sometimes we go into schools, but we go into other sites as well, like libraries, YMCA's. Sometimes we partner with animal protection organizations. So we offer our programs in all different settings.
It's amazing. And some of these places you're talking about, I feel like I've heard of them and I'm trying to figure out why. And I have to ask, where was the school that you went to for your master's?
Oh, so the Institute for Humane is based in Surrey, Maine, and it's actually a distance learning program. And they were well when I went to school there, they were accredited by Cambridge College at the time, but now they're accredited by well then it was oh I think I don't know why it's escaping me, but they actually get their accreditation from Antioch University.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
So yeah, so when you go to the Institute for Humane Ed, they're like a sub aspect of the Antioch University, and
Right.
so that would be your degree, and then you'd get your certificate in Humane Ed from the Institute. And now they have a lot of different degrees. When I was there, the degree was specifically a master's in education, but now they have a lot of different options and different paths because some people want to bring humane education like through other ways like fine arts or through other professions that they're in
Oh, okay.
because it doesn't just have to be teaching children.
Mm-hmm.
It could be like it's human education is really a sort of a mindset about how we look at the world. It's like a framework for how we're looking at the world, and
Mm-hmm.
then bringing that into different aspects of our lives. So that's where I went to school, and then there's the Institute for Human Animal Connection. That's the part of University of Denver, and through their graduate social work program, you can also get a certificate of humane ed.
Oh, okay.
There's also an academy for pro-social learning, and they offer something called the CHESS certificate, so you can become a certified humane education specialist. So there's a lot more ways that people can become a humane educator now, like get official training, a certificate, or a degree.
Oh, okay. Well, that's really interesting. Are there, I'm just wondering about maybe people who are watching this who are thinking about attending one of these programs. Do you know what the path is? Like, do people um, often find work specifically doing what they trained in, or is it sort of part of some other position they're in, or and people have
Yeah,
questions, and we're going to
that's a
get to
really
those
good
questions, I
question.
promise.
Okay. Yeah, that's a really good question. I mean, the way to become a humane educator, if you get one of these certificates, it can depend. So some people maybe are.
Oh, I think you got frozen. Hold on. This is so fascinating, and we froze you for a second. You might have to come back
Already
in if we lost you.
certificate classroom might get a. Oh,
Oh, uh,
hello,
yeah, you froze for a minute, so we
hello.
missed probably the past like 45 seconds of what you were saying. She's gonna come back in. Now I think you're back.
Hello.
A minute. You
Okay.
kind of froze.
Um.
I think it was when you started
Oh
talking about like what
no.
people do with the work, and then
Are
you
we?
froze.
Oh, right. So some people, there are nonprofit organizations that have humane education positions. Like I said, I was hired specifically. Well, I wasn't originally hired at the Michigan Humane Society to be a humane educator, but I moved to that after I finished my degree. But there's a lot of animal protection organizations, animal shelters that have humane education positions. And if you went to one of these schools that has a really broad perspective on humane ed, you could maybe work for an environmental organization if you have a strong background in the environment,
Mm-hmm.
or if you have a strong background in social justice, and then you could be bringing these other aspects about animals and other species and like the environment into your social justice work. So that's one way. And then some people have actually started their own humane education organizations.
Mm-hmm.
They've started organizations that they run. I knew one person who was in my class. He had been an entrepreneur and he had a lot of connections with different businesses. So he actually gave humane education trainings to like companies, so that they could think about, how can
Oh,
our
cool.
company cause less harm to the
Nice. Oh,
planet,
that's
and
great.
how can our company be more equitable, things like
Cool.
that. So it really varies what people end up doing with the degree.
That's great. And so people are loving this and have questions. So I'm going to pause for a minute and back up a little bit. And um, many people saying thank you for teaching the youth about compassion and proper treatment of
Oh,
innocent animals. Um, yes, pets are not toys. That's right. Devoted companions, empathy, everything's connected. And just to scroll down. Oh, are there any heart locations throughout the U.S.? So I know you mentioned that in the beginning, but maybe we could just mention it again. You were saying that there's certain locations, but are you maybe just go back over that and is there a volunteer program?
sure. Yeah.
Lastly.
So we're Sure. So we are currently based in New York City, Chicago, and Indianapolis, and because we are very small, originally we thought, oh, we'll expand to other cities, and that model was difficult. So instead, we started creating educational resources so that other people could at least have access to those resources to utilize in their own programming. So if you go to our website, teachheart.org, you'll find like a plethora of educational resource guides, all based on our actual experience in the classroom, that you can download and utilize. And they're free. So all you have to do is like give your name and your email. I think maybe answer a question, but we don't ask for much. And we have one guide that's called Justice for All. So we take different issues and have a lesson about how that issue relates to people and then animals and then the planet. We also have, like I said, the pre-K guide called Kindness for All. We have one guide specifically on compassion for farm animals that we co-created with Farm Sanctuary. We also have one of my favorite resources. This is the only resource that actually does have a fee attached to it. We co-created it with another organization, the Peace Learning Center, but it's 180 cards, and that was for approximately 180 days of the school year. And each card is only 5 to 20 minutes. So the activity is very short. So
Mm-hmm.
a teacher could do it in their classroom like every day for like, circle time in the morning, or maybe right when students come back from like a lunch or a recess, or maybe at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
And within these cards, each activity focuses on a different social emotional learning competency.
Okay.
And some of the cards focus on restorative justice, some of them focus on self care, some of them focus on humane education topics. So within these cards, we have little activities that are kind of providing students what they need to really think about their relationship to others and also themselves and take care of themselves. We have to have humane care for our
Mm-hmm.
own being as well. So it's a really great resource for that because it's very simple. And
Yeah.
even though it was made for schools, with slight modifications, like a family could use it,
Oh yeah.
to
Uh-huh.
like help with their own, yeah, development in their home. So it can be used
Yeah.
in any setting, and different size groups.
Yeah, that sounds fantastic. I could camps and things like that too. I could see. So if you're watching this, please share this with your
Oh
teacher
yes.
friends, everybody, people who do any kind of education. Please share this with them. Yeah. Good Night Owl says Kim has a lot of energy and passion for this cause. It's apparent. Yes, she does. You are glowing with enthusiasm, and even got a compliment on your beautiful skin, which is lovely. Your energy shines through, and it doesn't hurt that you have beautiful skin too. Oh, to be young again. Um,
Oh well, thank you very much. I'm very touched by your kindness. Thank you so much.
we have very nice people in our chat. Very blessed. So, what else? I'm just making sure I didn't miss anything. Okay, so very fascinating. And so are you, is there a reason that, I mean, I know it's not for profits, sometimes there's some restrictions with budgets and things like that, but do you plan to expand to other parts of the country? And Um,
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I mean, really, I think it's a lot of budget constraint. I mean, it's difficult to open a whole new operation,
mm-hmm.
in a new location. So currently, that's not necessarily something that we can do at this time. But we do, if there are groups that want trainings, we're happy to offer it virtually or travel
Oh,
there. So that's one way that
okay.
we've been able to expand.
That's great.
Like like during the pandemic, we actually partnered with there was an organization, Unite BVI, from the British Virgin Islands,
Oh,
and they Unite BVI basically works with a lot of different organizations and tries to provide them support. And so one of the things that they do is they focus on education and youth development.
okay.
So they asked, would we provide a training for some school counselors and some youth workers who provided like summer programs. So we did an online training for them, and it went really well. So we actually used our Everyday Circles toolkit that I have mentioned,
Mm-hmm.
and so we trained them on how to use that toolkit, and then they were able to utilize it. So even though we're not really in a position to expand to other places at this time, we definitely try to make the resources as accessible as possible so that if people want to bring humane education and heart resources to their area, they have those available to them.
Okay. And I feel like I'm definitely going to come back to some getting a little bit more to the heart of it, but I know we've kind of jumped ahead a little bit, but people are asking, is there a website? So I know you do have a website. And I'll have that linked in the description too,
Yeah,
but go ahead and feel free to share.
yeah, thank you for asking. So our website is teachheart.org, and that's two H's in the middle. So teachheart.org.
Yeah, and I'll have that down
Yeah, and
in the description too.
yeah, and please go to the website so that you can see the resources. Besides the resources I already mentioned, we also have a computer game. So
Cool.
young people can log onto it, and it's called CIT Squad, Compassionate Investigators in Training.
Oh.
So there's two young people, and they have a mentor, and they investigate different issues. And
Oh.
so in the game, well, we only had developed the one as of now, but in the game, they learn about someone who bought a dog from a pet store, and their dog is sick, and they want to know why. So the kids investigate the pet store, and then they find out the puppy mill where the dog came from, and they work with
Okay.
their mentor to help rescue the dog. So it's really sweet, and along the way they have some things that happen. And like for example, one of the things along the way is they encounter a dog who's chained up in the front yard,
Oh.
and so they're concerned about the dog. And instead of just taking the dog, they actually talk to the guardian, and she explains that she's been struggling and she doesn't feel like she can meet the dog's needs. So she's actually
Mm.
appreciative when they say, would you do you want us to help you and the dog? And she says yes. And so they take the dog to the adoption center so that the dog can get adopted.
Oh.
So it's also a way to not again, like if we see harm, not automatically thinking bad of someone, but
Mm-hmm.
talking to them
Right.
and
Yep.
educating them, and maybe they just need support, and then they can do something different and they're able to keep their animal, or maybe they recognize that they're not in a position to take care of them, and they want help. And that actually for me, I mean, I can't remember because it was obviously co-written with colleagues, but I remember part of that came out of when I was at the Michigan Humane Society. I did a ride along with the animal cops in Detroit,
Oh,
and it
that
was
must
it
have
was
been
really eye opening because they taught.
mm,
Yeah, but it was so eye opening because some people really just were unaware and they just needed help.
mm-hmm.
So a lot of their work was just educating people.
Mm-hmm.
And there was one situation where there were two dogs in the yard. They had gotten a call about two dogs in the yard, and one was healthy and the other was very, very thin. And so when the investigators talked to the guardian, they said, can you let us know what's going on? And they said, we don't know because we're feeding both the dogs, and but we can see the one dog is not gaining weight, and we didn't really know why, and we didn't have a lot of money for vet care. And then they asked them more about it, and they realized just from some probing that the one dog was just getting all the food. Like
Mm-hmm.
the one dog was
Yeah.
more
Taking all
dominant
it.
and
Yeah.
getting all the food, and the other Right. So then they gave them some advice about feeding them in separate places and making
Mhm.
sure that both dogs got their food. And then they checked back in on a regular basis, and the other dog ended up being
Oh, that's
okay.
great. It's
Um,
so social work
yeah,
like
so
that. It sounds, because I'm
it
a social
is.
worker, and it sounds so much like the kind of stuff that we would do, with people, in the way that you think, like just the mindset, that to not come in with judgment and not assume um, anything, basically.
Exactly.
So that's wonderful.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, and then like I said, there was another person who, when we went there, actually said, it was someone else who had left the dog there, and she really didn't have the
Mm-hmm.
ability to meet the dog's needs, and she said, "You would be doing me a favor if you were able to take." She goes, "I care about the dog. I just."
Mm-hmm.
So that's, in that game that was based on like, a real situation. So it's to show kids that
Yeah.
we can help without being judgmental.
It's so interesting too, because this is sort of a series that I'm doing without realizing I'm doing a series as I'm thinking about it. Like, I've kind of been going out and seeking people who can help figure out, like, how do we prevent, animal harm, as I said at the beginning. And I had somebody on a few weeks ago, former LA prosecutor, who developed something called BARC, another acronym like BARC, which is for adults
Yes.
who have gotten into some sort of trouble, or they've been identified as, maybe potentially there's a problem, and they get referred, a lot of times through probation, though, to BARC, and they have to take a course online. And it sounds very similar, but like the nice thing about what you're doing is it's hopefully preventing people from even getting to that point, as adults. This is starting young. So that's kind of what I really wanted to talk to you, because this is a great way to prevent people from getting to that place. So, yeah, let's talk. So, talk more about what your approach is to teaching. Like, if we can get more into tell us what goes on when you go to, say, a school, like when you do a classroom program. And I do have some pictures here too that I will bring up. Okay. Oh,
Yeah,
this
so
is
that
very
that's a
hands-on.
great question. So I'll briefly share part of our approach, and then I'll share some stories from these pictures.
Oh, and I just want,
So
before, I don't want
our
mean to
approach.
interrupt you. Oh, sorry. Sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I forgot to say in the beginning, we do have a podcast audience. So if we can, we'll try to describe the pictures, but if you are listening to the show and not watching it, you can always come to the Animal Intuitive channel on YouTube and see the pictures if you'd like to see them, or go to the Heart website too. Okay. So go ahead. Sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, not at all. And thanks for reminding me about the podcast so that we can describe the pictures so that people who are only listening. Thank you. So our approach is a lot based on the elements of humane education that Zoe Weil promoted through the Institute, and also through her book, The Power and Promise of Humane Education. So the first part is accurate information, right? So we have to start with information, and we want to be transparent about where our sources came from. So we encourage our students to say, don't believe everything we say. Like, go do your own research. So we start with information, and a lot of people, in my time of doing this, have said, "Oh, you just have to give people information, and then let them decide what they want." But we actually need support in processing that information. So we give information, and then we provide opportunities to build empathy and compassion. So we might do that through storytelling, perspective taking, role playing, all things that are based in research and science about what helps us to build our empathy. And then we promote critical thinking. So a lot of times, we want to think that everything that we think, it's because we've come to that on our own. But a lot of our thoughts are based on what we've been taught, what we've seen in the media, what we've learned through social conditioning, what we deem to be a social norm in our, whatever culture we were raised in. So we want to encourage kids to question, and to question their implicit biases, to question their assumptions. And again, this all relates to whether we're talking about other people, other species of the planet. Like, question our assumptions of our relationships to others, about what assumptions I might have. And then if there is something that I've learned about, and I'm concerned about it and I have care, then what do I do? And so that's why it's really important that we always include in our programs an opportunity to say, what can I do about this? How can I act in pro-social ways if I'm concerned about this? How can I take action either through my direct choices or on a systemic level?
Okay.
So this picture is actually from an animal rights elective that I taught. So we were invited to a school where they had these electives of choice, and the student could choose whatever they wanted. And there were a lot of students that wanted to take an animal rights elective. So we taught about, we talked about all different issues, and then we were able to arrange a field trip to a local farm animal sanctuary on the weekend. And so this is one of the students from that class, and then these were some, piglets that had been rescued. And so
Oh,
it was so sweet. I mean, if you're able to have the opportunity to bring kids to interact with animals that they might not normally have the chance to interact with and learn that they all are individuals, that's a really powerful thing.
yeah, definitely. That's wonderful. And so this little girl is in, it looks like a pen, sort of with two or three. Actually, is that like a mother pig in the back and then
Oh, yeah.
three little pigs in the front?
Yeah,
How sweet.
yeah, I have to say this was many years ago, so I don't remember all the pigs that were in the barn, but we can see the piglets, and there is definitely an older pig in the back who might be the mom. I can't remember their story, unfortunately, because it was too long ago. And then
That's
yeah,
okay.
the student was a middle school student, so you can see her petting the pigs, and then they're on the hay. And I have to say, this young woman, I mean, I've taught a lot of students, but I will never forget her. She was so incredibly compassionate. She had such a heart for animals. I would not be surprised. I mean, she's grown now, but I
Ah,
wouldn't be surprised if she's doing work for animals today. Yeah, she had such a big heart. She was very, very engaged in the program.
that's so cool. Maybe she'll see this and reach out to you. I always think about kids I worked with years ago in social work. You wonder, like, where are they now? What happened? Um,
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
you do,
Exactly.
you do. You don't forget. Okay, and so these are some kids with
So
some animal
this was
faces.
yeah, this was such a great after school group. So you can see there's a group of students and they're all holding masks that they made. So in this after school program, I think it was focused on animals and the environment. And these kids were choosing to be part of this after school program. And in this particular lesson, uh, they wanted to learn more about endangered species. So they all chose an endangered species that they wanted to learn more about. And we created little handouts of like research that they could do on them to learn about the animal and about their behaviors, their social lives, and then to learn about what threat they're experiencing. And then they wrote about what might be able to be done, like what could we do to mitigate the harm being caused to them. So the students did the research, and then they made their masks, and then they wrote first person essays from the point of view of the animal,
Oh,
so that
that's
they could
cool.
share their animal story. So instead of it just being, written in third person describing what's going on with them, like the Tasmanian devil would explain, like, this is who I am and this is what I like to do, but these are harms being caused, you know, uh,
I love it.
this is the harm being caused and then what you could do. Yeah, it was two of the students, they could pick any animal they wanted, but two of them picked African gray parrots. They were
Huh.
just separately, but they were both really, they had learned about African gray parrots and they were really interested. So two of them picked the same animal. And then we have a lion and a cheetah and the frog. And the frogs, that student couldn't be there for the picture, so they held up the frog because they said we don't want the frog to get
Oh,
left out. So that was really
oh.
sweet. So I can't remember, but it was a specific frog from the Amazon rainforest, and
Mhm.
that habitat being destroyed was what was causing
Right.
that animal harm. So yeah, that was a really sweet lesson.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay. I love that. That's very like true to my heart with animal communication, like helping people to really see it through the eyes of the animal and kind of related to that. I like that a lot. Okay, so this is a little boy
Yeah.
with a
So this is
sticker.
that.
Go ahead.
Oh, oh yeah, that's a carrot. Yeah, and
Oh,
you're right that he's feeding the cow a carrot, and this is from the same field trip of the young woman with the piglets. So this is the same field trip from the animal rights elective, um, and yeah. So anyway, this was really sweet too, because just this young man was saying like he had never been around a cow before, and he was amazed, and he couldn't believe how gentle, like for how big the cow was, how gentle the cow took the carrot from him. So yeah, that was
oh,
really sweet.
that's great. Um, okay, and then
So this is actually from our Have a Heart camp. So we had partnered with an organization called the Hunts Point Alliance for Children in the Bronx, New York. And so we had this summer camp where the kids would learn about things, and then we would do trips that were connected to it. So after learning about companion animal issues and animal homelessness, we went to Animal Haven, which is a shelter in Manhattan that we partnered with a lot.
mm-hmm.
So the students learned about issues about animal homelessness and how we can prevent that, and then they got to meet some of the animals at the shelter. So this is a little kitten that they got to meet.
Oh, little black kitten.
Oh yeah, so that was a picture of two young women in their Have a Heart
Oops.
shirts, and they were petting a small black cat.
Okay,
Yeah,
and then okay.
yeah. So, and this was you can go through some of these. So this was a different farm animal sanctuary trip from a camp, and it's a young man holding a rooster, and again, he had never held a rooster before, and you can just see the joy on his face that he's like really bonding
Mm-hmm.
with this specific individual. So just these beautiful opportunities. And what's nice is sometimes the sanctuary people would say to us, we do tours a lot where maybe just like someone comes with some kids, but they haven't learned anything prior. So our students had learned a lot about the factory farming system and about how animals are treated. So them seeing them, these animals that were rescued and hearing their stories, they were really moved to see like what the majority of farm animals lives are like.
That's great. And yes, good night. Oh, yeah, I like these comments, mentioning, I'm thinking the same thing. It's great for kids who live in cities to be able to go and see the sanctuaries and see animals they just wouldn't otherwise necessarily see. Well, in the Bronx, you might see a rooster. I used to live in the Bronx, so you might. There's some interesting things in the Bronx. um, all right, so this is, aw, little puppy.
Yeah, this was also the summer camp, and this is at Animal Haven. So again, oh, this was a really, really. I mean, all these kids are great, but I remember him so well. Yeah, he was a really sweet young man, and you know, so for those of you who can't see, there's a picture of a young man, and he's got this little puppy, and the puppy is like, really reaching out to
Yeah.
him. I think he ended up licking his face.
Yeah, they like really
So
have a
yeah, it was
connection.
just yeah, they really have. Again, it's like, we when we had the opportunity to teach about different issues, and then they get to meet some of the animals, that was always really nice.
Some more kids. What was it? A dog.
Yeah, yeah, this was our Caring Kids Animal Ambassadors program. So we ended up partnering with that same shelter, Animal Haven, and they wanted to have a Humane program, but they had limited staff. So we partnered with them, and then we would offer the program, and then a staff or volunteer member would introduce them to some of the animals and tell their stories. And with the Caring Kids Animal Ambassador, it was for like 5 to 7 year olds, and they would sign up for a specific theme once a week for 3 weeks. So some of the themes were like dog and cat protectors, respecting the wild. And so this was, obvious. This was actually one of the programs where I think it was focused on animal companions. And so with one of them, the Forever Homes, we partnered with an organization called JASA, and that's in New York City, and they support the people who are aging, and people who are elderly who maybe need different services. But one of their arms was called JASA Pets. So they were supporting seniors with pets who maybe had physical disabilities where it made it hard for them to walk their dog every day because they had
Oh,
lots of stairs, or maybe they were on fixed incomes, and so they were able to take care of their animal before, but now they were struggling.
yeah.
So the kids put together these packets for specifically for either if you had a dog or you had a cat, to help the animals. They put little packets together of things that a dog or cat would need, and then for the people, they wrote little cards to the seniors, like just
Oh,
little messages about just something positive, a cute drawing, and we hope you have a good day, or we're thinking of you, especially for some of these seniors who might be lonely and maybe didn't have anyone, people in their lives, and so they made these cards for them. So that was a project. So with the Caring Kids Animal Ambassadors, they always learned about something and then did a service project related to that, and at the end they would get a certificate.
that's a great program. What? Oh no. Okay, I thought I had my. I wanted to show the gorillas, and I don't think I brought them in for some reason. There was a cool gorilla picture. Because some kids did a project with
You can.
gorillas.
Oh, okay. Yeah, if it's not there, that's okay. So this is actually from a group that was just this past semester. So my colleague taught this group of students, um, and so this school asked us specifically for an animal companion program. So we did several weeks of teaching the kids about different issues related to animal companions, and then we taught them consensus decision making and active listening skills, and then they utilized that to decide as a group together what issue they wanted to work on and what project they wanted to do. So she was teaching like 5 classes at the school, and 3 of them, including this one, decided that they wanted to work on the New York State bill to ban the retail sale of dogs, cats, and rabbits. Because they were really concerned about, breeding mills,
Yeah.
and so these cards that they're holding up are actually little postcards that they created. They used, resource free, royalty free images that they found online, and then they changed them up and put their own spin on it, and then they wrote their own message. They created a postcard like explaining the bill and why it was important, and then they went out to people that they knew and educated them about why this bill was important, and they got 159 postcards signed. And then after the last class, we found out that bill actually passed, and so that's, I think it might still be needing the signature of the governor, but there's
Mm-hmm.
no one who thinks that it's not going to be signed.
Mm-hmm.
So we got to tell the kids this campaign that you worked on ended up actually being successful. So that was really great.
That's terrific. Wonderful. It really, because it's also teaching them like how to, yeah, how to be advocates, how to work the government, how to do those kinds
Yeah,
of things that
exactly. And
otherwise.
yeah, exactly. And like you were saying, sometimes I know you've talked about in your show, like a lot of people share with you stories about, animal cruelty and like, how sad it is. And it is, devastating to hear stories. And then with this work with Humane Ed, it's so full of joy because,
Right.
we educate kids about different, harms in the world, but we give them space to take action, and then it empowers them. And so it lets them know that, like, we can know about these issues, but there can be joy in taking action. One of my favorite quotes is by Joan Baez: "Action is the antidote to despair."
Hmm.
And so we want the kids not to feel left helpless or despair, but to know, how can I take positive action to make things better?
Yep. That's a wonderful quote and so true. That's fantastic. So I'm wondering if there's anything that I missed, and if anybody has any other questions. There's so much here. Like, there's so much information too that is on their website. You should go on there just to look around. It's really chock full of resources. And like I said, if you have teachers in your life, who may be interested in this kind of thing, please do send them to watch this and to go to their website. But is there anything that I missed that you think that we should cover that is important for people to hear?
Yeah, and thank you so much again just for directing people to our website. I really appreciate it, and just for giving us this opportunity to share the work that we do. I can't thank you enough. And thanks to
Absolutely.
everyone in the chat for being here. So I just wanted to, add that, there with humane education, it's that first part of teaching about the issues. And I didn't really describe, because some people were like wondering about our programs, and some of the pictures showed some of our like summer camps or after school programs. But like our core program going into schools was our 10 lesson circle of compassion program. And we start by having the kids think about who's in their circle of compassion. And you can do this with students of any age, because just the complexity of the conversation is going to change. But when we had them think about who's in your circle of compassion, oftentimes, as you can imagine, students start with who they know, who's in their inner circle, right? So like their close friends, their close family, maybe the animals they live with. But then as we ask them to think about, is there anyone else? Is there anyone you think doesn't deserve to be in the circle? They start branching out. And by the end, almost always there's a student who says, wait a minute, everybody should be in our circle of compassion. We should be taking action for everybody. And, it's always this beautiful moment. I mean, certainly with high school students, we've had some kids say, well, what about, and they'll bring up like people who have caused harm, or like what if, and we have complex conversations about, even when someone has caused harm, like, are they deserving of compassion or not? And kids will think about it, and we don't tell them what to think, but it helps them to think, yeah, even if someone's done harm. And some students, like I taught a high school class where the student, that student said that person probably needs more compassion. Like if they've caused harm to someone, maybe they didn't have anyone who cared about them, and that's what led to that. The students have been very thoughtful about thinking about what leads to someone causing harm. So we start with that first lesson, and then we say, okay, we're going to learn about some specific ways that people and animals are suffering, some ways that our planet is in trouble. And then we're going to think about how we can help them. And we're going to think about, is this someone who I had previously thought about who was in need of compassion? And if not, and now I know what's going on with them, how might I share that? Because we define compassion as having care and concern where we want to take action, right? So then we go on to learn about some specific issues related to people and different animals and the planet. So that's really, and then our last lesson is making a difference. And then we have a whole separate semester where we usually follow up, where then the kids have a chance, like the class at with the postcards, where they practice the skills that they need to make a difference, and then take action. So that's really what our model is. It's, again, not telling people what to think or what to do, and it just wouldn't be effective. It's really giving them the space to decide how they feel, how they think, and then to take action.
Yeah, it really sounds like this is very comprehensive. It goes deep. You have critical thinking involved in it. I mean, it really sounds like you go like above and beyond even just teaching humane education. You're really making a difference in how they think generally, and it's a very encouraging thing. I do have a question here. How about summer camps for children so they can go to these sanctuaries and do some work with these beautiful animals? That would be great.
Yeah, there actually are some farm animal sanctuaries that have their own summer camps. So I would definitely encourage you, if that's something anyone is interested in, um, search your area to see, is there a farm animal sanctuary near you? And if there is, are they offering a camp? I do want to give a shout out to Yay Camp, Youth Empowerment. So, I was going to say it's a camp for teens, but I forgot. I think they've actually lowered the age now. They have some sessions. So, Youth Empowered Action is a camp that usually takes place at a sanctuary. All the food that's served at the camp is plant based. The kids learn at the beginning why the food is plant based, and then they learn together about different issues. So these are students who are really interested in becoming change makers. They want to be a change maker. They might already be doing change making, but they want a community of other young people that they can learn from, and they gain some skills. And they all, during the camp, they all choose an issue that's dear to them. And it can be an issue related to, social justice or animals or the environment, or something that, kind of is bringing all these issues together. And they create their plan, and then they get a mentor. And then after the camp, they actually execute it. So we've actually had students in our program that we've, said like, oh, I want to do more, and we've told them about Yay Camp, and some of them have actually went on to go to Yay Camp. So a shout out to our friends at Yay Camp.
That's in the
And
city.
so there are some. So actually, I think well, they do have some virtual, and it's actually in I think in Maine, but
Okay.
they had, or no, I'm sorry, in upstate New York they had offered it, but I don't
Oh,
remember
where in upstate?
currently. I think they've offered it in some different places, but there was a sanctuary in upstate New York where they had offered it as well.
Oh, geez.
So, but you can go to you can just look up youth
Yeah,
empowered
Google.
action.
Okay.
Um, but so there are, yeah. So Google that. I'm sorry, I can't that I don't have your website off the top of my head, um,
Yeah, yeah, you
but
could Google it.
it's
It's pretty
nice to
easy.
know about other places so that, yeah, it's very easy to find it. But yeah, so we've actually had some of our own students go on to that camp because they wanted to do more now that they knew about it, and they did some service and they said, I want to do more and I want to meet other young people who are interested in these issues.
Massachusetts. That's where it is. It's in the Berkshires. Um, so
Oh,
yeah.
okay. I know at one time there it was at a thing, so it. Thank you. I had to move.
It's incredible that there's so much going on. Like I wish when I was young, there was all this stuff happening. This is amazing. All these like ways for kids to really, just really become involved more in what their passion is with animals and really get to take action. And it just sounds like this is wonderful. They're all starting young with these programs, and that's what I'm seeking to do, is to figure out like what are ways that we can really try to prevent some of this mistreatment of animals. And it's hard to say, and I was going to ask you about that. Is any kind of research or even anecdotal research that you've seen? I'm sure this is obviously this is having a wonderful impact. I mean, I don't think there's any question, but have you been able to do any research? Has there been any funding for that to see the outcomes?
Yeah, no, yeah, I appreciate you asking that, and I'll say one quick anecdotal story just as an example of like what a difference just a short program can make, and then I'll share briefly a summary of a couple studies that we did. So I was teaching a middle school program about animal companions, and I had just all I did was I showed a picture of a dog who was chained up on a short chain, and the dog, because the chain was so short, all the space around him was mud, because the grass was gone from, and there
Mm-hmm.
was no food bowl or water bowl in the picture. And I just asked the students, do you think this dog would want to be living here, or do you think this dog will want something different? Like, and if this dog will want something different, what do you think the dog will want differently? And one student rose his hand and he said, well, if it depends if this dog is an inside dog or an outside dog. And so I just said, oh, okay, I hear, the question you're asking. So I want to frame back to you. Do you think this dog sees himself as an inside dog or an outside dog? And where do you think this dog would prefer to live? Like, let's think about it from the dog's point of view. And immediately the student said, well, I guess that dog probably doesn't see himself as an inside dog or an outside dog, just a dog. And probably the dog would rather be inside, so he'd be protected from the weather and he would have more attention and care. So literally, just with with one picture and a couple critical thinking questions, the student, I could see the light bulb like change about how he was looking at where a dog wants to live. I didn't make an assumption about the student or what he was thinking. I just asked him some probing questions, very simple. And then for me, you don't want to, have like a one-on-one, right? You don't want to lose the rest of the class. So I gave him a moment to think, and then I opened it up to the rest of the class, and I said, "Does anyone else have any thoughts about what that dog needs or what that dog would want?" And they started sharing how they would change the picture, right? And some of the students said, "I would take him off the chain." Some said, "I would bring him in my house. I would give him a toy. I would give him fresh food. I would give him fresh water. I would give him lots of pets. I would give him walks and love." And so the kids then are teaching each other because they're hearing from each other how they think that dog's life should be. And so then they can kind of question it. It's not me telling them, it's them,
Right.
thinking about it and learning from each other. So just if that one story just shows like what a difference something can have just by having an opportunity to think critically and hear from each other if you're given the space to learn. And then just to give some studies, just very quickly, and if you go on our website, that we have a web page where if you scroll down, it says results matter, so you can actually read the full summaries of these studies. But just briefly, when we first started, we did a study in 2006 of our 10 lesson program. It was conducted by Dr. Ann Higgins Alessandro, who's a professor from Fordham University. And she did a pre and a post assessment. And I'm just going to share the summary of the results. It showed that the students' knowledge increased significantly in the following areas: the conditions of child factory workers, the needs of wild animals, habitat destruction, air pollution, climate change, and causes of bullying. The students' concern for animals in the environment, for farm animals, companion animals, and about pollution increased significantly. Most perhaps importantly of the findings were that the students' interest in taking humane actions by joining a group to help animals or the environment and urging their friends to join such a group increased significantly. To get the specifics about how many students were in the study and how much that change increased from the pre and the post, you can read the specific study. In 2011, we conducted a study from our summer camp with Dr. William Samuels from CUNY College. And that study found, again, that their awareness about specific issues increased. And specifically, what that study showed was that their awareness about how to be an effective change maker and take effective solutions to mitigate or prevent harm caused to children and animals had increased significantly. And then we did another study with Dr. Samuels again in 2016, and that time we had a control group. And that was on our Circle of Compassion program. It was in New York City and Chicago. And we found that the students who participated in the program showed stronger increases in their humane attitudes and pro-social behaviors towards animals and the environment as compared to the students in the control group. So I know those are just really quick studies, but
Oh, that's great.
I mean, summaries, but just because we're low on time. But again, you can read the full report on our website.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's wonderful. Yeah, so I mean, this is what we need more of. And, long term, I guess maybe we don't know exactly what the ultimate outcome is 20 years down the line, but wouldn't it be great if we could at some point find that out? Because that would be, but I would have to guess, I would have to assume that there's, if you're seeing a change now, and just by being exposed to some of this, a different way of thinking, and having this contact with the animals as well, and you just have to think that it's going to have a positive impact and hopefully prevent mistreatment of animals in adulthood. So you'd have to think so.
It would be nice to, yeah, it would be nice to be able to follow more of the students. I wish that it was easier to do longitudinal studies. It is
Yeah.
difficult with budget and time and student people moving. It's sometimes just hard to track where people are, but that is something that I think the field would benefit from, and hopefully at some point in the field we can get some more research. But the research that is done generally does show at least some significant impact and positive results. And then before we go, I did want to do another shout out to the Association for Professional Humane Educators. I'm a member of that organization. H.E.A.R.T has partnered with them a lot. And if people are just saying, different ways that you want to get involved with humane education or resources, they do a conference every year. If you're a member of the conferences, it's less expensive. So I just wanted to do a shout out to them as well, because there's not many associations of professional humane educators. So they provide a really great service. If people are saying, like, I want to learn more about how to get into this and potential career paths in this field.
And that's the Association of Professional Humane Educators.
Yeah, and the website's aphe.org.
Okay, hopefully I spelled that right. I spelled something last week wrong. I think it was dispensary. We were talking about medicinal mushrooms for pets, and luckily the veterinarian was like, I think it's an A and not an E. And I was like, spelling wasn't my strong point. Neither was math. That's why I got that right. And that sounds bad out.
Um,
So,
but
yeah.
but yeah, I was just gonna say, but there's still not a lot of people who even know about humane education. There is a need for funding for people to really you know, uh, understand what it is and to support it. So again, I just can't thank you enough for the platform so that I had an opportunity to share this with individuals, so that they can know that this is something that's happening that really is having a positive impact on the students that we teach, as well as hopefully, are all living beings on the planet as those young people grow up and have a new perspective. So, yeah, hopefully everyone can spread humane education, and
Yeah.
yeah, we do need more funding to support this because it's really an important work.
Absolutely. Yeah. So you heard what Kim said. Please share this, everyone, on social media. And I will have this on my Instagram and Facebook and some other places. So you can always find me there and share it too, this video, or share it from here. So, and there's a cool new feature with YouTube. You can actually make a clip. It lets you do like a 15-second clip of a video, and you can share it out from YouTube, which is kind of neat. It's like right under the window of the video. Just anybody can make a little clip
Oh,
of things.
wow.
So, um, yeah, I think, yeah, I know you buffered a little bit there, but I think we could still hear you. We also heard your kitty before. I think, did you have a cat visiting you? We heard a little meowing before people were commenting.
Oh, you mean I'm oh, I no, that's interesting. No, because I did have this is my dear. Can I show
Oh,
her? This is my
beautiful.
dear Fetch, um, who she passed away in December, and my spouse and I just have not been ready to adopt
Oh,
yet.
it's so hard.
She was just the love of our life, and we miss her so dearly.
Yeah.
We had, three cats, and the others had passed away, and she came into them, but then did not want another cat. so, I would have loved to adopt another one while we had her, but she was not interested, and we knew from cat sitting. She didn't and didn't really make friends with other cats too much. So
Oh.
even though she was the sweetest with people, so yeah, so she passed away, and we're just not ready yet. So I'm not sure
That's
the
very
meowing that
strange,
was heard,
because
but
it wasn't my
yeah,
cat.
yeah. So
That's really interesting,
it
guys.
wasn't your cat. No, no.
Hmm.
But
Well,
I miss her so much. I miss her so
it's
much.
so hard. It really is. There are fur kids. We went through that last year with our cat Tierna. It's very difficult, especially for those of us who really do, form these deep bonds with our pets. And this is the place for it. We all have compassion for each other here, and we've been through these kinds of losses. And yes, thank you so much, Kim. This is just a wonderful organization. Thank you so much for educating us about it. And, please, you be in touch and let us know about anything that's going on with your organization, and anything you want us to talk about here on the show. We can always help with that, or any of our social media as well, other pages. So thank you again. This was
Oh,
so helpful and wonderful. And we just appreciate you being
well,
here. Thank you.
oh, thank you. Good night, Owl, again for the kind words. Thank you to Anne, and just a moment for anyone who's lost an animal companion. I
Yeah.
feel for you, and we keep them in our hearts always.
Yep.
So yeah, we'll adopt again an animal when we're ready.
When you're ready. Yeah,
But
exactly. You
yeah,
will.
exactly. Oh, thank you, Mel, as well, and thank you anyone else who was on who I didn't mention. Just thank you all for being engaged and for your interest. I can't thank you all enough.
Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful, peaceful evening, and God bless.
Bye.